There is no form of black protest that would be acceptable to white supremacy, because white supremacy is reliant on black oppression. And so when black people resist that oppression, it shakes the system of white supremacy. And so we see these protests, and the system of white supremacy says that is inappropriate. It says this is not the way that you should be acting. Rather than, the system should not be built on white supremacy. The system should not be built on black oppression. So shake it, break it, burn it. Basically, do not base your opinions on what is moral on what makes white supremacy comfortable, what makes white supremacy able to continue as is. I also need you to understand that white supremacy is not something separate from our society. So when we are looking to dismantle white supremacy, we are looking to dismantle our current system. Is that a lot? Yep. But is white supremacy acceptable? Answer has to be no. And since our system is built on white supremacy, which is built on black oppression and many other forms of oppression, the system has to go. Now this one might be the hard one. What is the purpose of the police? We are told that the purpose of the police is to protect and serve the community. How protected and how served do you think the black community feels? How protected and served do you think the white community feels? That difference tells you all you need to know about the purpose of the police. White supremacy builds walls around white people. And within those walls, you're good. You know, you got your struggles, but things are working. But you're not the only people who exist. There are people on the other side of those walls who are like, this is not working. And you're like, what? Like, I'm looking at my walls here and they look fine, so. And then the people on the outside start breaking down those walls and you're like, excuse me, these are very nice walls. They're not nice walls if they were built by slaves. Imagine being punched in the face over and over again for hundreds of years. And you say, excuse me, I'd rather not be punched in the face anymore. I don't like that. Please stop. They keep punching you. And then you get mad and you yell at them to stop. They keep punching you. And then you slap them. And you are the aggressor? You are the violent one? You are the one threatening the stability of society? No. No. Here's a little U.S. history lesson for you. Back in the days where slavery was practiced openly and explicitly, there were some black people who managed to escape their oppression and attempt to live their human lives. When this happened, white people in the community would join together and hunt them down and return these black people to their place. These groups were called slave catchers, and it is from these groups that American police departments were born. It is a true story that the origin of American police departments were white people coming together explicitly to hunt black people. That explains a lot. I know that not everyone hearing these messages may be ready to hear them, but that doesn't matter. I know that not everyone gets it. I know that not everyone has been challenged enough to question the walls that have been built around them. The walls are there to keep this pain from your view so that you do nothing about it. But sorry, we're breaking these walls. It's happening. Whether you like it or not, whether you're ready for it or not, whether you understand it or not, this is happening. And here's why we're not waiting. Here's why I do not care if you are personally ready for this, because there were white abolitionists 200 years ago who figured out that slavery was wrong, that you can't treat people that way, that they were treating people that way and that they shouldn't be. 200 years ago, there were people who got that. And you're saying that you can't get it now? We are not waiting for you. And where are all of you lesser of two evil people? Because if on the one side you have arson out of desperation and despair, and on the other side you have murder for fun, and you're like, and you can't decide whether it is worse to systematically and repeatedly kill certain groups of people. But on the other hand, you really like Target. And so you decide to comment on how it is impolite to loot. You need more help than I can give you. Let's talk about curfews for a minute, because there are now several cities trying to implement these in response to the protests. This is not a good development, because it means that the authorities in those cities have no interest in addressing why people are protesting. It is saying, we don't want to see you, we don't want to hear you, we don't want anyone else to see and hear you who is watching this on the news. We don't want the spectacle of militarized police brutalizing people, because it makes us look bad, because it does inspire a response from the community, which they don't want to respond to. It also gives the police an excuse to arrest anyone without cause. All they will have to say is that you were outside and they can arrest you. So this is not good news. This is not a good development. I want to talk for a minute about some of the differences that I have noticed between the protests happening now and the protests that happened 6 years ago when Michael Brown was murdered in Ferguson. So one difference that I see now is that that I have seen, at least for me personally, for the people that I am interacting with, many, many, many more white people than last time. I know this happens all the time, but the last huge flare of nationwide protests was for Michael Brown. So since then, many more white people are speaking out, and they're doing it in a way that shows a more complex understanding of the situation. There are still people who are stuck in the all lives matter mindset. There are still people who are stuck in, but I don't like the looting mindset. There's still people stuck in, it's just a couple bad apples mindset. But of the people that I know, there are fewer of them, much fewer. And so many people who are speaking out are doing so in a way that shows an understanding of the roots of the problem, and of knowing that to fix this, this is not a surface problem. This is our deepest problem. And people are still growing to what it takes to fix such a deep problem, but that aspect has been better. But I feel like the police response and responses from mayors of cities all across the country, I feel that has been worse. They know that they're being filmed. And I have seen 24 videos from the past 2 days of astonishing brutality that is so blatant and even specifically directed at members of the press. They do it anyway. They continue. That has not gotten better. And it's not as if they were not brutal before. They were, and it was filmed before, and they knew that. But it feels, because they have not been forced to change. I feel like people witnessing this are better than they were 6 years ago because they have been forced to change. They have had experiences and conversations. They've watched documentaries or read books. They've known people. They have seen videos like this. They have been confronted with what is happening, and they have learned and grown and changed. The police have not. And you can ask, how have the police not changed when the general public is starting to shift, but they obviously have not? My response to that is that when you are asking police to not kill Black people, you are asking them not to do what they are there to do. The police are enforcers of white supremacy. So in order to get police to stop killing Black people, you have to stop the police altogether. You have to completely and fundamentally change, shift, restructure the entire system to the point where it is unrecognizable in order for that to stop happening. Now, that has not happened yet. And so the murders continue. The outrageous, shameful, shameless murders continue. And we say, how? How can it be this bad and still continue like this, time after time after time? They've always done this. We didn't always have video of it. They didn't always have militarized equipment, but they have always done this. Like I said the other day, American police departments were born out of slave patrols. They have always done this. This is what they were built to do. And that is where our further growth and understanding has to be focused. And we cannot expect that to be the responsibility of Black people, because the police are not going to be accountable to Black people. They're not here for Black people. They are here for white people. So it is incumbent upon white people to force them to change. That takes a lot. That is such a huge undertaking. I'm not minimizing that. That it's such a complete and fundamental shift that affects so much of our everyday life. It is a lot to do, but there's not really an alternative.